Is it going to bring down prices at the store? Can I save on my mortgage? What are mortgage rates going to do? Is it time for me to start house hunting once again? Of course, the housing market has been basically frozen because interest rates have been so high and prices have been so high as well. Marbue Brown is the CEO of the Customer Advantage. He joins us now live from New Jersey. Marbue, first of all, what was your reaction when the Fed lowered rates? And at the end of the day, what does it mean for the average consumer?
Well, look, first of all, it's a good thing for the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. I would have liked to see it be lowered a little bit more because the Feds were extremely aggressive when they were raising interest rates to try to get inflation under control. But it's definitely a good thing. Every move in this direction right now, I think, is helpful to the economy. But I think we need to, again, keep in perspective, the Feds raised interest rates 11 consecutive times, and some of those were big moves, right? And so when they started, interest rates were almost near zero, and they moved it up to, between 5.25 to 5.5 points, right? So that's a big change, and now we're coming down much more measured. And I understand why we're coming down at a more measured rate, but each of those moves downward, I think, is super helpful to the economy.
I was watching one financial news network this morning, Marbue, who said that he's frustrated with the Federal Reserve because they're using old data metrics, antiquated in so many ways from decades ago, to meter how they should handle interest rates. He said that they need to get their act together and realize that we're in a new economy. Technology, AI, inflation, trade, so many things hitting us at the same time, and that these factors aren't going into their decision-making process because they're using old models from like forever ago. Do you concur with that?
Well, look, yes, I do, and let me tell you part of why I think about it this way. Look, when the Fed raised interest rates, and especially when they raised interest rates at the rate that they did, one of the things that doesn't come into account is the fact that raising interest rates raises the cost of two of the biggest factors that impact the household budget, right? There's housing costs. The cost of buying a home is affected by raising interest rates, and that's one of the biggest expenses for households. And if the rates get high enough where households, families can't buy homes, then more families become renters. Mm-hmm. And when more families become renters, then the competition for rentals is much more, and then the cost of rent goes higher, right? So, and that's one of the biggest expenses for any family, the cost of housing. And then you've got the cost of transportation, the cost of buying a car. That's another big expense for families. And so when you raise interest rates, especially the amount we did and at the pace we did, then it makes it more expensive for people to buy cars. So, these are like big parts of the household budget, and, It helps to control inflation in one way, but it creates inflation in another way. And this is one of the biggest areas that's going to need to get adjusted for people to really, feel the impact of affordability.
Yeah, we know that mortgage rates are tied to the 10-year Treasury yield. And so the lowering of interest rates doesn't necessarily directly impact that. But do you see mortgage rates coming down anytime soon? Because people aren't wanting to move out of their house. They want to sell, but then what do they buy when rates are over 5-6%?
Well, that's just the point, especially for people who got their mortgages when, interest rates were around 2-3%, right? So, those folks are not going to sell their homes to go get into mortgages that are 6%. They need the interest rates to come down further and further. And yes, there's other factors that are affecting, mortgage rates. But as those Fed fund rates come down further and further, mortgage rates are definitely going to be affected. And that will make it, easier for people to buy homes, but it'll also make it easier for the people who want to downsize or relocate or any of those kinds of things to get out of their existing homes and to get in homes at reasonable rates.
Well, we keep hearing the affordability word being thrown around. It's certainly going to be in play with the 2026 midterms coming up. It's the Democrats are using it a lot. Now, the president has dialed into this affordability crisis, so to speak, hitting many segments of society. Will these reductions in interest rates that we're seeing affect affordability at all? And where is inflation at this point? And is a reduction in the inflation rate going to show up on store shelves?
Well, so let me start with that last thing you talked about. And when we talk about reduction in inflation rate, let's be clear. The inflation rate, when it's down, means prices are still increasing. They're just increasing slower. So there's a difference between talking about, inflation and the inflation rate, right? And I think that's something that we need to understand. When prices go up, that's already baked in and the rate has come down. So the fact that the rate is down doesn't necessarily mean that you see that on store shelves. But there's other things that are going to help you to see that on store shelves. Say, for example, the energy supply. As the energy supply is, up and prices for energy come down, well, then, some of the factors that go into the cost of things being on store shelves also come down, like transportation. The transportation to get those things to all the different places that they need to go to get on the store shelves, that's a big cost component going into those items. And so as energy supplies goes up, cost of energy comes down, then we should be able to see some of those things, on store shelves. Same thing with interest rates. As costs go down, for borrowing money, well, that can also affect the prices of things on store shelves as well. And so that's where we're going to see, those prices moderate, if you will. But it's not just, again, the inflation rate moderating means prices are still going up. They're just going up slower.
All right, Marbue Brown, CEO of the Customer Advantage. You guys are tasked with helping companies better target their customers and make their business models more effective in reaching them. Marbue, we certainly you helped us understand where we're going in this economy and what the Fed's lowering of interest rates will do to our bottom line. We appreciate it very much.
Hey, well, thank you for having me, Tom. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.